no mitzvah. There's no mitzvah on Shmini Atzeres. So the Gemara is going through a whole struggle over here of, do you say Shechianu on Shmini Atzeres during the Kiddush? And Rabbi Yochanan said yes. And the Gemara tried to say Rabbi Yehuda seemed to agree with him, or Tana, so it has a Tanaic source. And then the Gemara says, no, it's not true. Rabbi Yehuda was talking about something else. He was talking about mentioning Shmini Atzeres and benching and davening. Yeah, you could straighten out the davening a little bit different. But to say a bracha Shechianu, maybe not so. So that's where we'll begin. Mem Zayin Omud Sheni. We're going to begin over here on the bottom. My Hava Allah. What's the bottom line over here? Again, the Gemara wants to know, do you make a Shechianu on Shmini Atzeres? So Rav Nachman said, Oimrim Zman b'Shmini Atzeres, b'Shmini Shachag. You do say a Shechianu on Shmini Atzeres. Rav Sheshes says, Ein Oimrim Zman b'Shmini Shachag. You do not say Shechianu on Shmini Atzeres. But the Gemara concludes, "V'hilchasa oimrim zman b'shmini shachag." The halacha is that we do say Shechianu on Shmini Atzeres. Tanya Kavosei Rav Nachman. We actually have a brisa, an unknown brisa, that we didn't bring it as a proof before, but that it has some earlier source that they would say Shechianu on Shmini Atzeres. Why? The brisa says Shmini. We go to top of Mem Ches Amud Aleph. Shmini regel b'fnei atzmoi. Shmini is its own yontiv. What does that mean? Le'inyan pizar kashav. Pizar kashav. These are Rashi Tevis. Pizar kashav. So what does the pay stands for? Pious b'fnei atzmoi. That means that in the Beis Hamikdash they would make new lotteries for the Kahanim that served during Sukkot. Even if you had a job during the Yontiv of Sukkot, you were entitled to rejoin a lottery to get a potential job on Shmini Atzeres, because Shmini Atzeres is its own Yontiv. It requires a new lottery to give you a new chance. Zman b'fnei atzmai, and here's the key. You make a Shechianu by itself. Regel b'fnei atzmai. So regel b'fnei atzmai means you don't sit in a sukkah. Carbon b'fnei atzmai, there's different carbonos on Shmini Atzeres, which shows that it's unique than Sukkot. Whereas Sukkot, let's say you brought 2 rams and 14 sheep. Here you brought 1 ram, 1 cow, 1 ram, 7 sheep. So it's a different carbon. Shira b'fnei atzmai, there's a different shira, a song, or piece of Tehillim that you say. I'm not sure if Rashi didn't describe what it was. Rashi always was struggling, which is the shira. And bracha b'fnei atzmai. And bracha b'fnei atzmai, you say in davening, Siyam Shmini Atzeres Chag Hazeh. And Rashi brings down bracha b'fnei atzmai means that they would actually bench the king separately. Even though they blessed him on Sukkot, they would give another blessing for the king on Shmini Atzeres, because it's considered to be another yontiv. So here we see that Shmini Atzeres is considered to be a yontiv. Yontiv of Neyatzma, they make a Shechianu. As a side, they say a remez, a pizar kashav, means pizar means spread out, that's all over the place. Kashav, listen to, like hakshiva, the word kashav is listen to. It refers to your prayers, that you didn't have concentration when you're davening, during Yontiv. It was all over the place. Let's say you didn't focus on Shmini Atzeres, kashav, even those prayers are listened to. So Pizar Kashav, it's a special day of prayer, Shmini Atzeres. That's what it's known for. Halal v'hasimcha shmoina. The Mishnah said that you have to say Halal every single day of Sukkot, even on Shmini Atzeres. V'hasimcha. Simcha, what is simcha? Simcha is you have to eat shalmei simcha. That means, Rashi says, you bring a carbon shlamim, and that is your meal, like a shlamim. You eat the meat from the carbon. Keitzad. What does this mean? How do we express that? Melamed, this is the Bryce's, the Mishnah is teaching you, Shechayev Odam Bahalal uvesimcha uvechaved yomtev achron shel chag. In the chaved, this is, I don't know, it's a little odd, this word. Chaved yomtev achron shel chag means that a person's obligated to say the entire halal, to eat carbon meat on your Shmini Atzeres night, and honor the last day of Sukkot, kishar yekol yamois chag, like the rest of the days of Sukkot. Just like the rest of the days of Sukkot, you said halal and you ate karbonos. So therefore, even on Shmini Atzeres, you do the same thing as well. So the Gemara says, "Mino hani mili." How do I know? How do I know what? How do I know that you're chayev to eat karbonos on Shmini Atzeres? How do you know? To our Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. It says Shivas Yom. First of all, it says v'samachta b'chagecha. You have to be happy on Sukkot. And then a few psukim later it says v'yisa ach sameach. You should be only happy. Now, usually in the songs, it sounds like they're in one pasuk. But anybody who lanes knows the psukim are far apart from each other, but they put them together. Anyway, samachta b'chagecha teaches you that what you have to be happy on the 7 days of Sukkot. Why does the pasuk continue of yisa ach sameach? You should be only happy. The extra word sameach, happy. What does that teach you? L'rabis leila yontav achram, to include the night of Shmini Atzeres. That even that night you have to be happy. Now, it doesn't mean be happy. When the Gemara says, when the Torah says be happy, it means eat carbon meat. Very important. Eat shlamim meat. So you had to eat Shmini Atzeres at night, shlamim meat, and of course during the day, because that's the day of the Yontiv. But even the night of Shmini Atzeres, you would eat carbon meat. And how would you get carbon meat? Well, on Hoshana Rabbah, the 7th day of Sukkot, you would shecht extra animals in the Beis HaMikdash so that you can have meat for that night for the Sudas Yontiv. So the Gemara asked, now, by the way, the word ach is minimizing. In other words, you're only supposed to eat carbon meat, but you don't have to do lulav and esrog and sit in a sukkah. That's why the ach is a minimizing. So maybe it's the first day of Sukkot. In other words, maybe the Torah is saying that you should start shechting carbon meat erev Sukkot, so that on the first night of Sukkot you're going to eat carbon meat. Maybe that's what the Torah is saying, because really karbonos are brought during the day. So I know that during the day of Sukkot, bring a lot of karbonos. You're having a meal chalamoid, go to the Beis HaMikdash, shecht meat, and have meat from the carbon as your main course. But how do I know that maybe, perhaps the Torah is telling you from Vayisa Ach Sameach that you have to have an additional happiness? Maybe on Erev Yontiv of Sukkot, you have to shecht the carbon and bring it at night and eat it at night. So the Gemara says, Kishuhu oime ach, when the Torah says ach, but chilek, the Torah was definitive. It's only on the last night of Yontiv you eat carbon meat, not on the first night of Yontiv. So the Gemara says, Umari Isa, what made you do such a thing? The rabbis to include Leila Yontiv Achre, to say that the last night of Sukkot you have to have meat. Ulahoitzi, to exclude Leila Yontiv Rishon, the first night of Sukkot. So how do you know? Maybe do the opposite. Maybe exclude Shmini Atzeres and include the first night of Yontiv that you have to eat meat. So the Gemara says, Meraba ani leila Yontiv ha'acharin. I want to include the last night, which means Shmini Atzeres, sheyesh simcha lefonav, because there's a happy day before it. 7th day of Sukkot is the day before, so it's coming off of days of simcha. So we say it continues on. Umoitzi ani, I want to exclude Leila Yontav Rishon, the first night of Sukkot. There is no mitzvah to eat carbon meat. She ain't simcha lefana, because on Erev Sukkot and the days before Sukkot, there's no simcha, there's no inyan to eat carbon meat the days before. So what the Gemara just concluded is, yes, there is a mitzvah to have simcha by eating carbon meat Shmini Atzeres, but there is no mitzvah of simcha on the first night of Sukkot to eat carbon meat. That's a very important point, because the Gemara they asked the question of I forget who, as one of the shilas, they asked the question, if somebody did not do Kiddush Levana, and therefore the reason why we don't do Kiddush Levana, let's say on Friday night or something like that, technically you could, but on Yontiv night, normally during Yontiv, you don't do Kiddush Levana, because Ema Arvin Simcha B'Simcha. You don't do two, there's no Simchas, you don't mix two Simchas, and there's a Simcha of doing the mitzvah of Kiddush Levana. So we don't do it on a Yontiv night. But here, the Gemara said specifically that the first night of Sukkot, there's no mitzvah of Simcha. Moitzi ani leila Yontiv Rishon, there could be a wedding that first night of Sukkot. If you just made the wedding in the afternoon and you want to eat the meal at night, could be. Because normally we don't mix. If it's Yontiv, you don't make a wedding on Yontiv because Eima Arvin Simcha B'Simcha. That's just a thought. Mishnah. Sukkah Shiva Ketzad. What is the mitzvah of Sukkah is only for 7 days. So the Gemara Mishnah says, Gama Malecha, if you finished eating Sukkahs on Hoshana Rabbah, Lo Yatir Sukkah. Don't take apart your Sukkah, right? Ella, because you might need a sukkah in the afternoon. Let's say you get hungry very late in the afternoon, you have to go back and eat in the sukkah. Nevertheless, you want to start preparing for Shmini Atzeres. Avo moirid as a kalim in a mincha lamala. From 3:30 on in the afternoon, you should take out your dishware, your dishes from the sukkah, to bring it into the house to start preparing for Shmini Atzeres at night, because your meal is going to be in your house, as it was in Eretz Yisrael. The Mishnah is obviously in Eretz Yisrael, because on Chutz La'aretz we eat. The Gemara just said before, you eat in a sukkah, but in Eretz Yisrael you didn't eat in a sukkah Shmini Atzeres. I don't think anybody does. So you start bringing your dishes back into the house. So the Gemara asks the question, Ein lo kelim lo mao. So the Gemara asked the question, and they misunderstood the question. Let's say you have no dishes in the sukkah. So what are you supposed to do to show that you don't want the sukkah anymore? So when Gemara says, you don't have dishes, what did you use over sukkahs? Of course you have dishes in the sukkah. Ella, so the Gemara says, a fascinating question. A guy lives in Israel, and he's living in these, these mini apartments. I don't know if you follow those on YouTube, how they know how to make apartment 200 feet or whatever. He has a very tiny apartment in Israel. So he has no place to eat in his house. And he wants to eat in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres. The question is, it's Bal Tosef. You're eating the day after Sukkot in a sukkah. Ein lo mokum lahoyred kelev. He has no place in his home to put his dishes. So he really wants to eat in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres, but he's worried about Bal Tosef. Mahu, what should he do? So Rab Chia Barav Omar Poiches Ba Abba. He should take apart the sukkah, the schach, and open up an opening in the schach, at least the 4 tfachim, which shows that he's dismantling his sukkah. So when he's going to be sitting in that sukkah, it's like a dismantled sukkah, apostle of sukkah, and therefore he won't be over Bal Tosef. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Amar Madlik Basaner. You bring in a whole candelabra into the sukkah. Now we learned in a very small sukkah, you're not supposed to bring a candelabra in, a tiny sukkah, 7 by 7 sukkah. Gemara understood that if this guy has a 200 square foot house, apartment, then he probably has a 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim sukkah. So how do you passel a sukkah midrabanan? Midrabanan, if you brought in a candelabra, a lamp into that sukkah, so midrabanan then said you might start a fire, so that would passel the sukkah. So that's what you should do. So the
Baruch, how do you disrupt the schach during Yontiv? It's muktzah, isn't it?
No, so now that's very good point. It's chalamoid. So chalamoid.
Before. Okay.
Right. Now, but very good point, Sheldon, because that brings me to the next point. The Gemara is going to say, v'loy pligi, that the Gemara is going to say right now that halon v'loy halahu. They gave 2 ideas. Rab Chia gave the idea of open up the schach, take off some schach of 4 tefachim. The other one said, light up, bring in a lamp. And they're not arguing. Halon, one is talking about Israel, v'halahu, and one is talking about Bavel or Chutz La'aretz. What does that mean? The way they learn pshat in this is very interesting. Sheldon. In Eretz Yisrael, you actually on Shmini Atzeres you're not allowed to eat in a sukkah. So what you do? Take apart the schach on Hoshana Rabbah, which is Chol HaMoed, and that's permitted. But the problem is in Bavel on Simchas Torah, like we are New York on Simchas Torah, right? We really supposed to eat in a sukkah on Shmini Atzeres. So we don't want to take apart the sukkah because we're really supposed to eat in a sukkah on Shmini Atzeres because maybe it's the 7th day. But by Simchas Torah, which is the 9th day, so on the 9th day of Sukkot, let's say you want to eat in the sukkah in Simchas Torah, but you have the same problem. It could be Bal Tosef. And there you can't touch the schach because it's Yontif. On Shmini Atzeres, you can't take apart, you can't do soiser, demolishing on Yontif. So what do? And this Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi gave the idea of Madlik Basaner, bring in a candelabra. If you bring in a candelabra, that will passel the sukkah midrabanan without you being over transgressing, demolishing a sukkah on Yontif. Mm-hmm. Fascinating way to learn the Gemara. Because of your questions, that's how the Rishonim, in explaining Rashi, that's how they learned the Pshat.
Yeah.
So the Gemara says, okay, your idea. Okay, so we're talking about Simchas Torah, and a guy needs to eat in the sukkah on Simchas Torah because he has no home. He has a small apartment. So you're telling him that he could bring in a candelabra, a lamp, into his sukkah, and that would passel the sukkah. It will show that he's not over Bal Toisiv. It would be good if this guy only had a small, tiny sukkah. Sukkah gedola ma yiklamein. But let's say the guy is splurged on a sukkah and he had a big sukkah, and you're allowed to bring in a lamp into a large sukkah. It's only in a 7x7 sukkah you can't bring in a lamp. What is the eitzah? In other words, give me another advice of what to do to show that he wants to passel his sukkah midrabanan, that he doesn't really want to be here. So the answer is the maya ba mani mechla. You leave in there, or you bring in dirty dishes. The Amarava, mani michla, bar mital alta. Dirty dishes, you should take it out of the sukkah. It's not respectful. Mani mishte, dirty glasses, bimetalta, you could leave it in the sukkah. So by leaving in the dirty dishes, it's like passing the sukkah, albeit in a drabanan way. And therefore, that is enough to make you bypass the Avera of Baal Toisif, that you're not going to get the Baal Toisif. At least people will see that you don't really want to be in the sukkah. Next, Nisach HaMayim Ketzad. What was the Nisach HaMayim in the Beis HaMikdash? In other words, during the Talmud Shel Shachar, on a typical day, they brought the sheep onto the Mizbeach. They would pour wine on the Mizbeach. On Sukkahs, they had an extra pouring down the Mizbeach was the Nisach Mayim. I want to bring a picture for you on my screen over here. Basically, this is the picture, so you see it clearly. On the Mizbeach, there are two basins over here. One on the west facing the sanctuary, right? This one, that's where they poured the water in. This basin, they poured the water, and this one, they poured the wine in, the more closer one to the east. So, and they both drained out of a spout at the same time. They were supposed to flow at the same time and empty at the same time and flow into this drain system. And underneath, there was like a drainage that took the liquids out to the Mei Shaluach, something like that. So it took it out to Mei Gichon. So you have to, there's archaeological studies on what the drainage system is in the Beis HaMikdash, but I know that they're discovering things each year. So that's what the mission is discovering. What was Nisach HaMayim? Shloiches shel zav, they would bring jugs of gold. Machazekes shloish lugim, that held 3 lugim, which is a revius ahin. Hoya memale min hashluach. They filled this jug of gold from the shiluach spring. It has in lechatchila, you should use a spring water. Higia l'shar hamayim, they entered through a shar hamayim, which was on the south side of the Beis HaMikdash. There was a gate, a water gate, they called it, as they brought in the jugs that they just drew the water from the shiluach spring. So they came in on the south side, which is where the Mizbeach is, facing south. Taku ve'riya v'taku. They blew, and they made a trua, and they blew for simcha, right? To show they're happy, we're happy to do this mitzvah, which is not written in the Torah. It's halacha l'Moshe Messiah. All of Kevesh, the Kohen went up the ramp, upanelis money, made a left turn. Shnei safolim shel kesef hoyasham. There were 2, as I just showed you on the picture, 2 basins of silver, they were there. Rabbi Yehuda says shel sid hoya. It was limestone. Ella shahayu mushcharim pneim pneyayin. But it was limestone, but it looked dark because there was wine on one of them. The Gemara is going to explain this, but when you pour wine on something, on limestone, it turns in the color of silver. Okay? Umnukavim, and it actually had holes. Kimin, we go to two holes, 2 spouts coming out of those basins. One of them was Mu'uba, had a thick spout, the Echadak, and one was a thin spout. In other words, one had a big hole spout and one had a thin hole spout. And basically, since wine flows slower than water, so they would put the wine in the one with the bigger spout, that had the bigger spout. Kidei, so when you pour the wine and the water at the same time, Kidei Shem Shneim Kolim B'Vasachas. I'm not sure why, but They wanted that the wine and the water should come out at the same time and finish at the same time, and go down to that hole on the, like this picture on the, there was this drain, go down the drain and empty underneath the base of English to the drain at the same time. Maravai, the one on the basin on the west was Shalmayim, was from water. Mizrache Shalyayim, the one on the east was wine. Now, Eira Shalmayim l'soich Shalyayim Shalyayim l'soich Shamayim Yotza. If the kohen, Shlamaz kohen, one on Sukkot, mixed it up and he poured the wine down the water basin and the water down the wine basin, it works Yotza. So you did this for the 7 days of Sukkot. So, and you did it with Shloisha Lugim. Comes along Rabbi Yehuda and he argues. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Beloik hayam menasech." You only use one loik, and also it was called Shmini. Even on Shmini Atzeres, they did Nisach Hamayim. Now, says the Gemara, there were a lot of tzedukim who were kahanim that believed, that didn't believe in this whole mitzvah of Nisach Hamayim, and they would try to spoil it, not to do this mitzvah. So to the kohen that was pouring the water down the basin, Hag beyadcha, I want you to lift your hands, and everybody should see you pouring it down the basin. No sleight of hand. There was one time where a kohen nisech echad al gabe raglov. One kohen poured the water onto his feet because he didn't want to do this mitzvah. Ugamu kol ha'omim be'esrei gehem. And all the people stoned him with their esrigs. It was right after Tamid Shel Shachar. They stoned him. They used stones as well, but they actually killed the kohen. But they used esrogim. I'm pretty sure that there's a famous civil war that came out of this. Okay, between the Tzedukim and the Perushim, part of the history of that time. Then the Mishnah says, "Kema aseu b'chol, kach maseu b'Shabbos." They poured water on the mizbeach during the days of Sukkot, even if Chalamoid came out on Shabbos. But you can't carry water from the Mei Shiluach into the Beis Hamikdash because that's carrying on Shabbos. They would carry from Erev Shabbos a pitcher of gold that they had no holiness. It was not mukudashes, and they brought it from the spring on Erev Shabbos, Friday afternoon. So it was not holy waters. They just brought it into the Beis Hamikdash to save it, to use. You'll draw the water from that barrel the next day on Shabbos. So they prepared it from a barrel of gold that was not holy. Because if it was holy, obviously, and they brought it in, then there's a psul called lina. If something overnights in the Beis Hamikdash, you can't use it anymore. But if it was unholy, so then there's no psul of overnighting. And they put it in the office. What happens, nishpacha? Let's say this chavi is spilled. Well, let's say there was an earthquake overnight and the whole barrel turned over. Nisgalza, or let's say it became uncovered. Now, when something becomes uncovered and overnight, so there's an issa in the Gemara to drink or to use something that became uncovered because we're out of concern that maybe a snake came and put his poison in there. So the question is, now, Shabbos morning, you come into the room where the water is and there's no cover on the barrel anymore. So we perhaps assume that a snake put its poison there. And when you're going to fill up to use 3 lugim from that barrel, maybe you're going to fill it up and use some poison. So you will have 2.9 of water, but 1.1 will be of poison. And therefore, that would not be good to pour on the Mizbeach. So what did you do then? You don't have water. So they took water from the kier, which was not alachatchila, because the kier was not spring water from the main kier, which actually even they had a way of lowering the kier below the Beis Hamikdash every night into the Megichoin, another spring that was there, and therefore it was not possible. So from that kier, that water basin, they took the water from there. The Mishnah concludes using wine or water that became uncovered are possible to use to pour on the Mizbeach. Now the Gemara discusses like this. How do we know this din that you're supposed to have simcha when you're drawing the water? We said before that when they took the water from the shaluach, they actually blew shofars. When you draw the water, do it with joy. Now, so that's why they knew they blew shofar to make it joyful. Obviously, it was more than just joy over here, and that's why we do Simchas Beis Sheva, because this whole mitzvah of pouring water on the Mizbeach was subject to such controversy because it's not written explicitly in the Torah, that there were many parts of the Jewish people that denied it, and therefore to publicize it, they made a whole shebang with it. They made Simchas Beis Sheva and dancing to celebrate the truthfulness of this mitzvah, which is a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Now the Gemara just says a very strange story. Hani Trei Mini. There were two, let's call them Christians or whatever, that knew the Bible. Chad Shmei Sason. One was named as Sason. Chad Shmei Simcha. One had a name Simcha. One had it was called Sason and Simcha. They had an argument: who is better? Amalei Sason and Simcha. Ana adifni minach. I am better than you. Diksiv, because we have a pasuk that puts Sason before Simcha. Sason v'Simcha yasigu. They will reach Sason and Simcha. So we see some sign comes first. So my name is a better name than yours. Amalei Simcha l'Sason. Simcha says to Sason, "Ano adifna minach." I'm better than you. Diksiv Simcha v'Sason la Yehudim. Simcha first, and then Sason for the Jewish people. Amalei Sason l'Simcha. So Sason says to Simcha, "Chad yomer shevakuch v'shavia pervanka." One day in Shemayim, they're going to let you go, and they're going to make you into a messenger. You know what I mean? In other words, you're going to lose your whatever status in life you have, and you'll become like an Uber driver. Why? The ksiv, you simcha, kiva simcha, seitzeu. Through simcha, he will guide you the way, take you out. In other words, simcha is like the Uber driver driving you around. So that's what the Sasin told Simcha. You see how they omalei simcha l'sasin. So Simcha said to Sasin, Chad yom shevakuch. One day they're going to leave you, umila bachmai, and they're going to use you as a water carrier. The ksiv, because the pasuk says shafta mayim, we're going to draw the water b'sasain through sasain. So they were just having, I guess they were so well versed in Tanakh, but they were, twisting the words of Tanakh in order to suit their opinions of that their name is superior than their friends' names, and that was always the way of the Tzedukim, and they had such knowledge of Tanakh. The Gemara says one more story. Amalehu mine dishmei sasain the Rababo. This Christian said to whose name was Sasain, it was probably a popular name. He said to Rababo, "Asidusa dismali mayim la'alma da'aseh." Everybody is going to fill up water and bring it to me in the future world. When the Messiah comes, that's what they're going to do. Why? Tiksiv, my name is Sasain, and the pasuk says, "Ushafta mayim b'sasain." You will draw water to force Sasain. So therefore, everybody is going to bring me water. Amalei. So Rabbi Bowie answered, if the Torah said shafta mayim, draw the water, l'sasain to sasain, kida ka'amrit, I would agree with you. The hashad iksiv bisasain, they're going to draw the water with sasain, mashchedahu gavra mashvale guda. They're going to turn this human being into a jug, that umalin and baimaya, and they're going to fill you up with water. They're going to use you as a jug, so to speak, turn your whole body into a jug. That's what it's supposed to say. Ushafta mayim, we're going to draw the water through the person called Sasan. So this is like a Kabbalah Gemara. I'm not sure but there definitely is high lessons to be learned over here, on what the conversation is and how it comes into the Talmud at all. I'll just point out that you have to know that there is a difference between the word simcha and sasain. Usually, the way we most people learn, simcha is inner happiness. Sasain is joy that's expressed on your face. So outer joy. So like you say in davening, we're going to say in Rosh Hashanah, simcha li'artzecha. In the future world, when Mashiach comes, there'll be happiness, inner joy, li'artzecha, to the entire Israel. But sasain, outer joy, will be li'irecha, to your city, Jerusalem, because in Jerusalem, you'll see more of an expression of joy with the Beis Hamikdash being built and people coming to be Oile Regel. That's how they learn Sasain, the difference between Sasain and Simcha. The way to daven well is to be able to differentiate between synonyms, words that seem similar. One more piece of Gemara, two more lines. Tanu Rabbanan, Kol ha'olam lamizbeach, oilam derech yamin umakifim v'yardim derech small. People who would go up to the mizbeach, they would make a right turn and go around. So if we take a look at the picture over here, look, the kohen's going up the mizbeach. Obviously, this is the fire and this is the tapuach, and he would go around if he needed to come to this side, or if he needed to do something over here, he'd always make him mizbeach. Except three times he made a left turn, because that's the way you're really supposed to. You're always supposed to go to the right. Okay, make a left turn, and when you want to go down, you don't go all the way around the mizbeach. Pouring of the water and pouring of the wine. Because if you took the wine and water and made a right turn and went all the way around the mizbeach, the smoke, we don't see it here, but there's a lot of smoke coming to the mizbeach, and that may defile the water or the wine. So we want to go as quickly as possible to the left side of the mizbeach where the hole was for the nisach hamayim and nisach hayayin. That's, and also the oilas ha'oif kisharafs b'mizrach. Usually the oilas ha'oif, if you want to bring an oilas ha'oif, they would do the malika over here and shecht, the malika, which is the decapitating it with the fingernail. They would do it on the right side. But there was a lot of kohanim. If there was a backup over here, they would do it over here. They would do it on the left side, because usually this was more empty side. This was reserved for chatas oif. So the point is that when they go up in the mizbeach, if they have to circle the mizbeach with that oila, the bird may die from smoke inhalation. So we try to get quickly as possible to the corner that you needed to do. So only on these three things, you made a left turn and then right back. But most of the time when you went up to the mizbeach, you went to the right and you circumvented and went down the mizbeach on your left side. Okay.
Baruch, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that they were concerned with the yayin, the libations, the wine libations and the water libations to be going down the drain at the same time.
Right.
Is it, when you spill something on Yontiv or Shabbos, could you sort of take water or a liquid and wash it away? Is there a low tasa for that?
Yeah, I mean, what I mean, let's say if
let's say wine falls on the floor and it's starting to smell. Can you take water and just kind of dump something water on and wash it away? I'm thinking that maybe
only on a tablecloth. Only in tablecloth you're not supposed to do that, or an item of clothing, because that's like laundering on Shabbos.
But on the floor it's okay.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm trying to think maybe the reason why they wanted to do it together was because maybe there was some type of low tasa. It would be like a marasayan that they were doing something illegal.
No, obviously that the reason why they wanted it to go down the snout at the same time, right? Go down the snout, because no one wants, if the wine took longer than the water, people will think that the wine was more important than the water. Or the water is more important than the wine. But we wanted to show that they're of equal importance. And although the wine obviously is written in the Torah, it says pour wine on the mizbeach,
right?
But we want to show that they're equal importance. That's why they had to go down at the same time. That's what I'm thinking.
Sense.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Excellent.
Very good. Oh, by the way, hello.
Yes.
I think tomorrow I'm not going to be able to make it. My mother-in-law is making a shaver brachas and doma, and I want to make sure I'm in the will. So
Mazel tov.
Yes, so she's making a shaver. You're right. So
Okay.
I hate missing. I hate missing, but I can't say no to her. Okay, we make a small shaver brachas. Okay,
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Okay. So please return on Thursday, and
I will.
Okay, Zai everybody.
Good to know.
But Lewis, we ended off. Let me show you on the page by the third wide line. Elo Shahoyim Ashkirin, the third wide line on Memches Amut Sheni. Elo Shahoyim Ashkirin, that the basins were black. Rabbi Yehuda says they were black, or they were made of silver, right? Shemashkirin. Third line and third wide line. Okay, very good. Good Tanakh. So tomorrow I'm just taking. We'll have a break and we'll return on Thursday. Okay, Zag is into good Tanakh.